morning. Thanks for coming, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm going to talk to you about Renforth Resources, trades on the CSE, the symbols RFR, OTCQB, RF, HRF. So, as mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about the Surimo property, which is located in northern Quebec. It's quite interesting. The picture was some stripping we did. Okay, backwards doesn't work. Picture you saw was some stripping we did on the Victoria structure. Surimo is a huge property. It's 330 square kilometers. It's located adjacent to the Canadian Malartic open pit mine, which is a great neighbor to have. It's a 4-kilometer long open pit mine. That's important because at Surimo, our mineralization is on surface, so our neighbors set the precedent of a large-scale open pit, which is what the future for Surimo most likely is. On this slide, you see the government geophysics, and you see two orange lines. The southern orange line is what we refer to as the Victoria structure. Originally, I acquired this property largely through staking. We had the very northern portion of the property where you see the orange dot for our Beaupré copper discovery. And then end of 2021, I was frustrated and bored and started staking all the historic base metals showings to the south of us and to the west. Assembled the 330 square kilometer property, wholly owned, 100%. No obligations except associated with a corner of the former property, which are not relevant to anything we're going to talk about today. So the southern orange line is what we call a Victoria structure. When I staked it, we knew that there was historical work at Victoria and Colony at either end of a magnetic anomaly that stretches 20 kilometers. We've now validated that magnetic anomaly as representing nickel polymetallic mineralization. It's two bodies. There is a VMS or an MMS, we don't know yet, but it's a copper zinc silver body. And occurring in the same place, there's an ultramafic, which gives us nickel, cobalt, and PGE elements. Very unusual to have both of these bodies occurring in the same spot, but they are. There is a precedent for this. It's the Outokumpu district in eastern Finland with polymetallic mineralization like that. It's interesting in that in our drill core, we see distinct phases of mineralization. We see each body separately, and then we do see them mix where they butt up against each other. We don't know the geometry of it yet. We don't know the relationships. We have drilled 2.2 kilometers in the area of the blue dot that is Victoria, the left-hand blue dot on the southern line. So, as I said, we refer to that entire southern structure, 20 kilometers, mineralized across its length as Victoria. 3.7 kilometers north of our Victoria drilling is Lalonde. There's a blue dot for Lalonde. The Lalonde structure, there's gold in the system as well, but it's separate. It's associated with the bigger intrusive. But the Lalonde structure was worked historically. We've ground truthed or prospected or proven mineralization on surface over 9 kilometers of Lalonde presently. We will continue to work Lalonde. Our current interpretation of these structures is that they're two arms and the fold nose is helpfully off the property on our neighbor's property. I'm going to wait till Agnico, the dust settles, and Agnico owns Canadian Malartic outright, and then I'm going to try and get some claims off them, which we both know is not going to work at all, but it will piss them off. So, that'll be fun. In any case, we've ground truth Lalonde over 9 kilometers, and we were just in the field at Lalonde. We did some, we did some trenching. And we cut channels through the trenches. We have visual mineralization on surface at Lalonde. Lalonde has been drilled historically, but has not been drilled by ourselves. We do intend to drill Lalonde later this year and to do more drilling at Victoria. So really, those are the focuses of the property. But there are other things happening. The Houston target, we got ridiculously high-grade samples, grab samples out of Houston. We haven't done any follow-up. Beaupré is a copper-silver discovery made a couple years ago, traced it over 165 meters on surface, goes into dirt at that point. We haven't done any follow-up work. My current conversation with my geologist is I think I've convinced him to blast Beaupré, which will be super fun. And we also, there's lithium. We'll talk about lithium at the end. So, why is all of this important? Well, you'll see in the next slide, the logistical setting of this property is spectacular. You couldn't dream up better logistics if you tried. And of course, you guys can all read these quotes. I'm not going to read them to you, but you're all aware of the fact that we're in a market, a world right now where the demand for base metals is significant. There's been no investment forwards by existing mining companies, and of course the capital markets have been pretty sad. Although because I'm a business genius, I've decided to pivot this company from a gold company. We have a gold deposit we didn't really talk about. We'll talk about it at the end. But I've been a gold company forever. Acquired properties, dropped properties, sold properties, developed the new Alger, sold it to the neighbor. But we were a gold company, and of course the gold market, we know how spectacular that's been the last couple of years. So I was like, screw it. There's all these base metals here. I'm going to go after these base metals. Well, and now what do we have on our hands now? Maybe the beginning of another gold market, because we finally have the US election behind us. So my timing's always been spectacular, but nonetheless, we need the base metals. This is part of the reason Surimo is so exciting. You'll see Surimo's outline there, and you can see our gold deposit. That's the little Parbec backwards L. It's fun because it's sitting on the Cadillac break right beside Canadian Malartic, and it's now the only thing Agnico doesn't own in the neighborhood. But Surimo, if you look to the south, there's Rapid 7 and Rapid 2. The power lines for both of those hydroelectric generating stations run along Surimo. The town of Cadillac is indicated on that map, and there's a road that goes, you'll see it in a subsequent slide, but there's a road that goes from Cadillac straight down to Rapid 7, and the power line is beside the road. They actually discovered the Lalonde and the Victoria mineralization when they were putting that road through in the 40s or the 60s? I'm going to say the 40s. But in any case, they were putting the road through, they discovered the base metal mineralization, and they kept going. So the road runs right through the property, runs right across the mineralization. We have road access. We're between the towns of Val-d'Or and Rouen. Rouen has the Horn smelter. It's Canada's only copper smelter. We're not going to build many more smelters. We have a rail line on the top of the property. We have the cities of Rouen, Val-d'Or, Cadillac, Malartic. These are all mining towns. The Cadillac Break to the north hosts a Laurent mine. Interestingly, the Laurent mine is a VMS mine. It's a gold-rich VMS, but they have the ability to process all the material that might one day come off Surimo. And they've already told me they're paying attention, but they've been paying attention to me for a long time, and Agnico hasn't really done anything, so take that with a grain of salt. But in any case, extremely well located. The highway is the northern route of the Trans-Canada Highway, so it's a regional road. Now, what we did earlier this year, because, you fly your detailed geophysics after you drill the property, right? In my world, you do. So you can see the road is in the middle of the property coming down through Lalonde and through Victoria. This detailed geophysics and the with it, we flew an EM survey. That's what the circles and squares are on top of the magnetic. Those are EM anomalies in the first 150 meters. If our geologists go to one of those anomalies, if they can find bedrock, they find mineralization. So fundamentally, this is now a roadmap to mineralization on the property. But you can see the road and the power lines there. The green dots are our drilling. We drilled and stripped 2.2 kilometers. And that's it, with 29 holes, so very widely spaced. Now, location. Again, location's interesting. The hydroelectric power is a game changer. It's the cheapest in the country, and of course it's green. It figures into what I'm going to tell you about lithium, but it also figures into the fact that I'm awaiting, prior to year end, Tesla is making an announcement as to whether their lobbying has landed them in Ontario or Quebec. They hired a high-volume recruiter in Montreal, and now they're hiring support staff for the high-volume recruiter in Montreal. When I was in New York, the Quebec delegate to New York told me that there is a massive battery news announcement pending. It's under tight wraps within the government, and she was shocked it took her as long as it did to find out about it. So I'm waiting to see if Tesla's in Quebec or Tesla's in Ontario. Either case, we're right by the highway, but it's going to be quite interesting if and when that announcement comes. So, Surimo, sustainable. the nickel is a sulfide nickel, the polymetallic nature. All of the metals are easily separated with conventional techniques. We'll be using green power. The property doesn't host any significant water bodies. There's no population on the property. There's one identified First Nation where half the property is in their identified area. We're on good terms with them. I'll have the chief and council on the property next spring because we couldn't fit it in before they got too busy and it got too cold up north. But fundamentally, you know, Tesla's got themselves off all the ESG lists because they're using Indonesian nickel. But Indonesian nickel's an interesting thing, and it's set a precedent. They're taking a low-grade product and they're reprocessing it repeatedly, using a lot of energy. It's coal. They're dumping the tailings in the ocean. That's all bad. But the precedent it sets is the need for nickel is so dire that the very, very low-grade material becomes viable. Now, right now, our grade of nickel is about 0.25 at Surimo, which sounds like it's a bad thing, but there are a few things to remember. Surimo's a polymetallic, so there are other payable metals that'll have economic impact to an eventual mine at Surimo. But we also mine low-grade copper, right? There's a lot of large-scale 0.3, 0.4% copper mines in the world, and nickel is much more expensive than copper. So if you're using the old miner's rule of thumb of get to $30 a ton in metal for an open pit, and you're dealing with polymetallics and you're dealing with nickel in an environment where low-grade nickel is viable, but as it's a sulfide, less energy intensive and cheaper because we have the cheapest electricity in the country, it's a very interesting story. Now, be clear, I got the cart way before the horse, but I'm an optimist. This is what I do. I can see where this is headed. I'll get there. Now, lithium, I told you I'd tell you about lithium. So the same thing that's happening with nickel, low-grade nickel is a viable product, even with heightened energy costs because the need for nickel is so great. Well, that story is even bigger in the world of lithium. The need for lithium is stupid, and the price of lithium is ridiculous. I've been doing a lot of research on lithium because we have lithium. I know nothing about lithium. I was a gold, right? Gold and base metals, we understand. I'm actually trying to hire a lithium expert right now. Why? Because we have a lot of lithium. We have lithium in our drill core at Victoria. All those green X's are pegmatites. We've discovered a couple pegmatites, but we have a lot of lithium that's of a low grade and it's associated with the sediments. We don't know why. Is it a halo effect? Is it leaching out of the pegmatites? We don't know the answer. Again, we're not lithium people. But what we do have is a lot of lithium associated with micas pervasive on the property. Okay, big deal. But my research right now is on a town, and I'm going to screw this up. It's spelt Yichuan. Don't know how to say that, but it's in China. It's the largest lepidolite deposits in the world. It's low-grade lithium. They have to process it and over-process it, very energy intensive, and they're using coal-fired energy to make a viable lithium product. So we have a lot of low-grade lithium. Is it going to mean something? Again, I have no idea, but it's certainly, in my world, worth chasing this down a little bit and learning more about the lithium. You are seeing, it was on mining.com yesterday, ceramic producers are using slag. They're processing it to create a lithium product. So I could see a future where the super low-grade lithium, the need is so great, if you can deliver it in a responsible way, a green way, which is our setting at Surimo, with an energy inputs that are low cost enough, which again is our setting at Surimo because it's a hydro dam, maybe it's viable. So that's a question mark for the future. Parbec. We have 2 gold properties. One's a gold deposit. It's 1.8 kilometers of the Cadillac Break. It's an open pit with an out-of-date May 2020 resource statement of 104,000 indicated and 177,000 inferred ounces, and the grade ends up being 1.77 or 78. I forget which. All of that's great. The important thing is it's surface gold next door to Canada's largest quarrying operation, which has gold as a byproduct. They're going underground. They have a 60,000 ton per day processing facility. Their feed from Odyssey, the lowest number I heard, was 14,000 tons per day feed from Odyssey. They're going to have to scale their equipment down. Agnico is likely going to be successful in getting 100% control of this property, which means they're going to be able to feed the infrastructure at Malartic with material from other sources. That's the main driver, I would expect, why they're doing that, aside from the bagfuls of money they make selling the gold. That is interesting because in Parbec, I'm only talking to one person now. I'm not talking to two in a partnership. So who knows what the future holds for Parbec. The investment rationale, well, we're dirt bloody cheap. That's the big one. Lots going on, real assets, secure assets, green assets, assets the market wants.